So let's start with the empty Blender scene and what Blender scene it would be without the default cube, right? So first of all, let's delete what we see here. I will just drag a selection around all those objects, press X and click delete. And now we can start by adding a plane. So I will press Shift A and add a plane here. And you will notice I use a lot of keyboard commands. And I think Blender is really awesome when you really learn all the keyboard shortcuts and incorporate them in your workflow and get them really in your muscle memory. You will be able to create your projects with lightning speed in Blender. So I really recommend doing everything with shortcuts. Now we can continue by pressing Tab to go into the edit mode, and we'll press S to scale and scale this 4 times. So while using tool like scale or grab or anything, you can use the numerical values to enter some specific value. So press 4 and enter. So now we have plane that's 8 by 8, and this will serve as our building block for the entire scene. And now we can press E to extrude this, and I want to extrude this down, and we can enter 0.8 and enter minus additionally. So we go into negative direction and press enter. But now since we went down, probably the normals are flipped, and that might cause problems later. So when you extrude in the negative direction, it's always good practice to just press A to select all and Shift N to consolidate or recalculate normals. And now we can look from the top, so press 7 on a numpad, and we'll need to create the one loop cut here. We need to add some more geometry so we can actually create a riverbed in the middle of the scene. So press Ctrl R and place a loop cut right here, and just release with the right mouse button so it jumps right in the middle. And now I want to have 2 loop cuts there, and we can use a bevel tool for that. So if you press Ctrl B, you can split this into multiple cuts, and you can adjust the number of cuts with the mouse wheel. But right here I just want 1 cut like this, and press 1 on the numpad and enter. So we beveled 1 meter to either side, so this is 2 meter wide right now. And we can continue by adding some more geometry along the y-axis, so we can actually model the riverbed and give it some variation, some bends and twists and stuff like that. So first of all, I will do a cut here in the middle, click, and before confirming, I want to move this to the side a little bit like this. And now I want to create one more here, so Ctrl R and create a new one there, and just release with the right mouse button. And here I want to use bevel once again, so Ctrl B and bevel, but I want to do 2 segments here, so let's increase that with the mouse wheel. Let's do cuts like this, and I want to do a similar thing here on the other side as well. So Ctrl R, new loop, but shift it more towards the side there like this, and now press Ctrl B and bevel this as well. Let's confirm with the left mouse button. So this will give us some more geometry to work with, and we can now toggle the X-ray mode. So hold Z and go down to toggle X-ray, and let's switch to the vertex select. So I will press 1, or you can click here, whatever works for you. And now since we enabled the X-ray, if you select vertices, you have selected the bottom ones as well. So let's go back to the top view, and we will shift this geometry around a little bit. So I will press G, then Y, and move this up like this. So we create a little bit of a slope there. And now we can select these 2 pairs and press G, then Y, and move it down. So we create some slope there as well. Okay, and let's do similar thing on the other side. I want to select these 3 vertices, press G, then Y, move them up, and I want that slope in a similar angle like here, and we can move these 2 as well. So press G, then Y, and move it up. So this will give our river a little bit of that variation, and I want to shift this a little bit down so it's not that wide in the end. And now we can select it all, press G, then Y, and kind of shift it a little bit so it sits more in the middle. And I'm eyeballing this. You can too. You can do your own bends and twists, whatever works for you. So no matter how many cuts you create and how many bends, basically the technique is the same in the end, and the result will be very similar. So when you're finished with this, we can now rotate the scene with the middle mouse button and hold Z and toggle the X-ray back, and now switch to the face select by pressing 3, and let's select this face right here and hold Ctrl and click here to select this loop. And now we want to extrude this down, but if you only press E and extrude this down, you will see Blender will create this unnecessary geometry here, these unnecessary faces, and you would need to fix that manually, which is not that big of an issue, but let me go back. I will press Ctrl Z. Since Blender 2.9 version, there is a new function in the extrude menu, and if you're coming from Blender 2.8, this might be a new thing for you. So if you press Alt E for extrusion menu and select extrude manifold, you can just push this down and Blender will remove that unnecessary geometry for you. So now we can enter 0.5 minus for a little bit of that precision, and let's press enter. So it's a minor thing, the extrude manifold, but sometimes it will save you some of those precious seconds you would need to spend to clean up your mesh. So I really love this new function, and now we can move on. But still, there's some of that cleanup left to do. I really don't care about quads here. I want n-gons because I will use bevel modifier later. So I want to remove some of that excess geometry, some of these edges that I really don't need here, because this is very geometrical design. And for selecting loop, you can just go to the edge select by pressing 2 and alt clicking here to select the loop. And by holding Alt and Shift, you can additionally select more loops like this, but we cannot dissolve this right now because that would destroy our shape as well. So we need to leave some of these edges on the wall there, and you can select these perpendicular loops by holding Alt Control. So this will be a little bit handful, but if you now hold Shift, so we want to deselect, and hold Alt and Control. So I'm holding Shift, Alt and Control and click here. You will see we deselect all of these perpendicular edges on this face loop here. And now if we rotate this and hold Shift, Control, Alt and click here, we deselect this as well. And now if you press Control X, you will dissolve these edges and only the clean n-gons will be left there. But I don't need these as well, so let's select these two edges here as well, and the last ones. So Control X and dissolve. Okay, let's rotate back, and this is our clean terrain model. And now to introduce that smooth toy-like feel, to make this a little bit more playful, because this is too sharp right now, we can add the bevel modifier. So I will tab out here to exit edit mode and switch to the modifier tab, click add modifier and add the bevel modifier. So you will see this will create these chiseled edges here, and we can increase the number of segments to 3. That will round it up a little bit more. Let's set the amount to 0.06, so it's a little bit smaller. And now if you go here to the overlays menu, you can enable the wireframe view, so you will see what the bevel modifier actually creates, what kind of geometry it generates. And now I don't like these corners here, so I want to switch the geometry and miter order to arc like this, and this will give a much more smooth result. And now we can right click and shade this smooth. So let's disable the wireframe overlay, and this looks well, but there's weird shading here on those large faces, and we can easily fix that by enabling harden normals here in the shading menu. So let's expand that and click harden normals, but nothing will happen yet, but you will see there's a warning here and it says to enable auto smooth in the object data properties. So let's switch to the object data properties right here, go to the normals section and enable auto smooth here, and you will see the shading will get fixed, and this is now nice and smooth result, and underneath it there's still that simple geometry we just created. Now let's go back to the edit mode. So I will press tab and I want to select these top faces. So let's press 3 for face select this one here, and shift click here to select the other one as well. And now we'll reuse this geometry, and this is the thing I like to do very much, because instead of creating a new geometry, creating a new place and snapping vertices in places and stuff like that, you can just press Shift D to duplicate the geometry in place, press enter to confirm. Now you have same geometry in place, and right now you can press P to separate and click selection, and this will separate this geometry into a new object. Right here in the outliner you will see that there's the original plane object and there's a new object right here with that separated geometry. So right now if we tab out and select this new object here, you can tab in and you have that separated geometry here. So this is a very useful thing that I like to do often. And now let's go to the top view by pressing 7 on a numpad, and we'll use knife tool to create some kind of road here. So let's press K for knife, and you will see it will snap here on the edge. So let's click here near the y-axis and we'll start cutting right here. And now you can press C to snap this to 90 and 45 degrees angles, which is very useful here. So let's do a cut like this. Now continue this way. And let's go all the way to the other side here, like this, and we'll create a road here. So click here, and now before you click anywhere, you will need to confirm this with enter. And now the cut is actually there, and we split this to separate faces. And now we can press K again for knife tool and continue on the other side as well. So let's click here. And let's enable that C for that angle snapping, and let's try to create something similar right there. Can go higher here and create a road shape like this. Okay, and now we can simply just select these two faces, press X and delete faces. Let's now rotate the scene a little bit. And we can press A and E to extrude, and let's enter 0.2 and enter. So here I'm creating some kind of grass around the road and the river, and again the bevel there will get transferred. If you separate the geometry into a new object, the new object will get the same modifiers. So we don't need to set up any bevels, we don't need to harden normals or set the auto smooth. Everything is exactly set up as with the object before. So we are saving a lot of time here. And now we can tab out and we have a brand new geometry here, and you can see how the bevel helps to deliver that playful look, that this is basically made out of plastic or something. And now we can add a little bit more geometry here. So let's press Shift A and add a plane, and now we can press G and Shift Z to exclude the Z from the movement. So right now we are moving only on the X and Y axis, and if you now hold Control, you will snap to grid, and we can move this to the corner here. And let's go into the edit mode. So press Tab, press E and extrude this 0.4 and enter. So here we are missing the bevel modifier, so we can tab out, and with this object selected we can shift click the original plane object and press Ctrl L to make link, and we can choose modifiers. So this will transfer the modifier from the second object to the first one. And now if we click this, the only thing left to do is to shade smooth and enable that auto smooth here as well. Don't worry about this overlapping, this will look all just fine in render. So I just wanted to create a little bit of the terrain variation. And one last thing I want to do here is to select this, go into the edit mode, go to edge select by pressing 2, select this edge and press Ctrl B and bevel this, but just with one segment to create a slope there, something similar. So we have some more space here. Okay, let's tab out. So this is for the terrain modeling, and now the only thing left, it's good to keep the scene tidy. So the one thing left is to name the object. So I will select this one here, double click in the outliner and call this ground. Let's select this one. I will name this grass, and this one as well. And if you give a similar name, Blender will just append the number there. So all works just fine, and our turn is complete. Now we can move on and model some bridge.